Hello and welcome to Quick Start to Coding with Swift. Please may I introduce my co-host, Matt. Matt Hanlon is a long-time software developer, coach, teacher and dad in Ireland.
Thanks, Steve. And may I introduce Steve Bunce, an author, teacher, associate lecturer, and dad in the northeast of England.
Thanks, Matt. We have an exciting session for you today. Today, we are looking at variables. We'll use the Learn to Code 2 playground today and learn a bit about variables, a way for our app to remember important details. In our case, with Byte and friends, we want to keep track of how many gems we've collected. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's Unplugged session. Today we're going to think about variables. So a variable is something which can have different values. So for example, if you were playing a game, you might get a score in that game. So if you were playing a game of football, you might have a score of 3 goals to 1. And the number of goals for different teams is a variable. So we're going to think about that with our dance theme today. So as it's unplugged, we don't need any technology. What we do need is just a piece of paper and a pen, and you need your bodies and your brain, of course. What we're going to think about is we're going to think about which variables are in our dances. So it might be that you want to choose a dance that you like doing, and maybe if you were with us yesterday that you chose a dance that you enjoyed doing. If you remember, I enjoyed doing the banana meatball dance. So we're going to use those dances as our examples to try and think about those variables, those things which change. So on my piece of paper, I'm going to split this into 8. So to do that, I'm just going to fold it in half. So we're following an algorithm here, aren't we, just to do this. Fold it in half, and I shall fold it in half again, like that. So fold it in half and half again, and open that out. And if we do that, we have 4 panels. And then I'd like that, I'm just going to fold that all in half again to give me 8 places to put some answers in. So again, you can fold this how you like, just all we need is to have it so we have 8 spaces. Okay, and let's open that up. And let's start. So into each of these 8 rectangles, we're going to put a variable. So for our song, we are going to put in this first one, we're going to put in the name of that song. Now that song actually is really the dance is what we're thinking of, isn't it? So actually it's the name of the dance. So sometimes you get songs which will have a special dance to go with them. And sometimes it's just the dance is the name of the song. So let's put that in as well then. So name of dance. And this one we could put in the name of the song. Now some of you might have played the Just Dance game, where you watch on the screen and you follow along with the moves of the dancers. And you can choose many different songs, and that has a huge number of songs to choose from, a huge database of songs that you can choose. And in that you can select it by different variables. So for example, you might look for that name of the song or the name of the dance. Also, it might be that you're looking at how long it takes to do that dance or that song. So let's put the duration, and that's basically how long is it? How long is that piece of music for the dance? Okay, so there is our duration, how long. What else could we have? We could have, for example, how many times it has a verse. So a song might have, here we could have, say, the number of verses. in my song. And what you'll find is a lot of songs have a pattern of a set number of verses, a set number of choruses, and then they finish. So let's see if we can spot some patterns today too. So if we've got a number of verses, a song might have a chorus which is repeated in there too. So can you see, not only are we looking at algorithms today, we're looking at what we learned about in loops and repeats. So I'm going to put in there a number of choruses in this one. Okay, so there's 5 variables for our songs and our dance. So let's see. It might be that it was a popular hit, it might have gone high in the charts. So we could even write down how popular it was. So let's go for our highest chart position. Right, so 6 variables so far. What about our last 2? Well, one of the things about a song is how quickly it is, and that affects how quickly you have to dance to it. And sometimes you might hear about this in terms of B, P, M, or the number of beats per minute. So that's relating to our heart, and how fast our heart goes can relate to how fast the song is. So a fast song, say, is 140 beats per minute, something like that. That could be quite a high, intense song to dance to. And then finally, in our last one, let's have number of dance moves. And this is your chance to try out your dance and just see how many dance moves are in there. So for example, the song I like, the banana, banana, meatball, well, there's 3 dance moves. And those dance moves are repeated though, so we don't have to count them again. So we're going to count the number of individual dance moves in your song. So you can choose whichever song you like, choose that song, and let's start looking at these variables. Do you think you can find all those different things for your song? Okay, so the name of the dance, name of song, the duration, how long it is, number of verses, number of choruses, highest chart position, the number of beats per minute, how fast it is, and the number of moves. And if it helps, what you can do for the number of moves is you can turn your page over, and on the back here you could even draw out, maybe just using stick figures, the different dance moves, and that can give you a chance to draw down which dance moves are in there and help you count them up. Or if it helps you to dance them out yourself, to dance out the moves, then do that, dance them out, and write down how many moves are in there. Because today we're thinking about variables, and Matt's going to help us out to think about that as we think about moving our friend Bite around Swift Playgrounds and to look at those variables. Okay, on we go. Let's get dancing. So I'm back there from dancing and thinking about the number of moves in my dance, and I'm going to add those to my piece of paper. So, how did you get on? Did you manage to work out how many moves were in your dance? Did you work out how long it was? Did you manage to work out how many times you had to repeat those different moves? These are all variables, and Matt's going to help us out about thinking about variables now, as we're going to look at Byte in Swift Playgrounds and how you can use variables within your programming and your coding. Okay, over to you, Matt. Keep dancing. Hello, everybody. Today we're joined by Kelso High School. Welcome, Kelso High School.
Hey, guys.
Now, this morning you've been looking at a dance. Which dance have you been thinking about? Or have you been looking at lots of different dances?
Anybody want to give us an answer?
YMCA.
Good pick.
Fantastic. And can anyone tell me, what was one of the moves in YMCA?
Guys? Could you... Oh, I'm just realising we've got you guys on site. We want to sound off. We want the sound off.
So,
No one's going to demonstrate?
One of the moves on...
There we go. It's all Y.
Right. So that's one move, and then two moves could be the M. Yeah. C.
The next move. And your next move. Okay.
Brilliant. Well done. So that's four moves. How many times is that repeated?
How many times do we think that's repeated, guys? How many times do we think that's... Okay. So we're saying, Aurora, how...
And then 3 choruses and 5 verses, probably 3 times.
Okay, did you hear that, guys?
That's pretty good.
So in our song, we have some variables, and you mentioned there's some choruses and some verses and some moves. Now, a trickier question. How fast do you think that song goes? How many beats in a minute? What's your estimate?
What was your estimate?
120 to 130.
How about yourself?
About 120.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody else? Oh, yes.
I put 130.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got a few more answers coming in, 125.
That's cool.
So that's important. And when you, if you were a DJ or if you're mixing on your decks, that pace is important. Whether you stick to the pace of the song, sometimes whether you speed it up a little to make the whole dance a bit faster, or whether you're matching. So maybe you're mixing two songs together, and as you mix that one song with another song, you need to match that speed. So you have to think about that variable, the beats per minute in there. That's brilliant. Well, I'm so pleased you've been looking at the YMCA dance this morning, and you've been thinking about the number of variables in there. You can keep practicing the song, but we're going to say goodbye for the moment and go over to Matt. And Matt's going to tell us a little bit about how to code with Swift. So let's follow along with Matt.
Sounds good. See you in a sec, guys. All right, so we're going to hop over to our iPads again, and we're going to pull out Swift Playgrounds. I actually liked their example up at Kelso High because the guys had to refer back to their papers to figure out how many beats per minute were in the song. That's going to be a lot like what we're doing with variables today. So we're going to go open up Playgrounds again. And today we've moved on in our coding lifetime. We're going to move on to Learn to Code 2. If you don't have this downloaded already, you can go to See All in More Playgrounds, and it's in the Learn to Code section. This is the next step that you'd follow on to after you finish Learn to Code 1. or after you've gotten a bit of experience in Learn to Code 1 anyway. I'm going to open up Learn to Code 2. And just like with Learn to Code 1, every single section starts with an introduction that tells you a little bit about the topic that we're going to be studying. So today we're looking at variables. So we're going to liken this to something like a contact list that we have, or like the list of attributes we had for our song. So we can store all these names and phone numbers in our contact list, way more than we can remember, because we'd have to go back to it and maybe look up who had what phone number exactly. And for each contact, we have properties like a name, maybe the age. And those are attributes that we can assign values to. So in this case, we have a contact called Mia, and she's 19. So those are the values for her age and her name. So just like with some of the other stuff that we've studied so far, like functions, like for loops, we have a certain syntax we use in Swift when we're creating variables. And we use this var keyword. So that lets Swift know that, okay, the next thing that comes up is going to be the name of the variable that I need to remember. So in this case, we have a variable called name. And we use the equal sign to assign a value to that variable. So name equals Chris. And you'll see that there are quotation marks around Chris. And we'll talk about those in a second. And then we also have a variable keyword here, a var keyword, with the name age. That's the name of our variable, age. And we assign the value 19 to it. So there's a little note here. Swift has the notion of different types. So it's going to treat a name, which is just a string of letters, all called a string, differently than it treats a number like 19. 19 is called an int value or integer. So that basically is just our way of storing a whole number. So it's kind of like if you had a box to store something in and it only took very specific things. So you couldn't fit, if you had a long skinny box, you can only fit maybe a screwdriver in that box. You couldn't fit a bowling ball in there. Swift is a little bit the same. We have our different shaped boxes that are our variables. So with an assignment operator, we don't have to just assign the value when we declare our variable with that var keyword. You can see here that we changed the value of age as we run through our code. So we assign it to 20. We assign it to itself plus 1. This is kind of an interesting technique to use in Swift. We can also multiply by 2. So we can use all these arithmetic operators like plus, minus, multiply, and divide on our variables, particularly with our integers here, our ints. So once we've created, the key with the box type that we're storing things in is that once we've created a variable and we've assigned it a value, so in this case, age was assigned an int, we can't then go and say, oh, actually, do you know what? I really wanted to store a string in there. Swift is going to give us an error. So we need to make sure that we assign the right type of value to our variable in the first place. This is actually a really handy feature of Swift because it saves us from a lot of common problems that we find in programming languages. Swift is a very safe language, so it tries to help us out before we go and run our app. So you can see that we're able to assign our age to another int. Everything works out fine. So let's go take a look at this in action. So what we're going to do here, our goal is we're going to create a variable to track the number of gems collected. We're going to see this a lot in games. If you start programming games, and we're going to get to that tomorrow, you might have variables that keep track of the user's score. Well, we're kind of keeping track of Hopper's score here. So we have a couple of notes here that we can take a look at. We can learn what declare means. So in this case, they're declaring a variable. Now in this case, they're using the keyword let, which is a little bit different. That if you follow some of the extended ideas that we have on the mini site, you'll learn a little bit more about the let keyword and how it's different than the var keyword. But today we're just going to stick with var because we want to be able to change that value. It talks about assigning, and it talks about the assignment operator, that equals sign. So we're given some instructions here that we can follow. Set the initial value of gemCounter to 0. Move to the gem and pick it up, and then set the value of gemCounter to 1. So let's try that. I'm actually going to give you a couple of seconds to try that out. So the very first step is we set the gemCounter to 0. Can you figure out how to do that? Once you've done that, and you might want to enter that inside this value box here. Once you've done that, you're going to perform your commands to go get Hopper to move to the gem, collect the gem, and then you're going to assign a new value to gemCounter. How's your code coming on? Let's have a look at Hopper and see where Hopper is. What kind of moves do we need to make to get up there? Now remember the stairs, this just counts as one tile, the stairs and the flatbed at the top. Have you made it yet? All right, let's add our value. So in here, we're going to use a number to keep track of the number of gems collected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 0, like it said in the instructions. And then I'm going to tap to enter my code. So I want Hopper to move forward once. And down here in the autocomplete bar, I have a lot more commands available to me in Learn to Code 2. I'm going to tap move forward again, and then I'm going to go back and collect the gem. And now that I've collected the gem, now I'm going to change the value of my gemCounter. This is just a way for me to remember and to let Swift remember certain things for me, like the beats per minute in YMCA. I can refer back to this variable anytime, and it'll tell me, oh, yeah, cool, the value that I wrote down was 125 or 130. So in the autocomplete bar, I have the equal sign. And since I've only collected one gem, I'm going to put 1. Now, I could be really cool here because I'm coding my own game, and I could say, actually, you know what? Hopper's just collected 100. Let's try running my code. There we go. We're up underneath the gem. We collected the gem, and the hint bubble flashed. So I haven't done something right. Maybe it's because I was trying to hack things a little bit. So it's saying that I need to assign the value to 1 to be able to pass this particular exercise. So let's do that. Let's change it. I'm just going to hit the delete key down here to get rid of my 2 extra numbers. I'm going to hit the play button, and let's try it out. All right, Hopper's up the steps, under the gem. We collect the gem, and we did it because we weren't cheating. We only collected 1 gem, so that's all we're going to count. So, all right, that's looking pretty good. Let's try moving on to the next page and work a little bit more with variables. All right, so in this page, our goal is to assign a new value to gemCounter for each additional gem collected. So, that's right. We can cheat at games. gemCounter equals huge numbers. We can. This is great. Unfortunately, it won't solve that playground page, and you're only cheating yourself. But when we get to tomorrow, we'll be building games that other people can play, so we can kind of play around with those game mechanics and change the points, and have a lot of fun with that, and a lot of fun with our variables if we want. All right, so for gemCounter, first thing we need to do is we've created a variable, change its value. We need to assign the gemCounter a beginning value of 0, and then move to each gem and collect it. And then after every gem we collect, we're going to change the value of gemCounter, the value that we have stored in our variable. So here, I'm going to give you a couple seconds to do that on your own. Let's try it out. There are a lot more gems on this page. How many are you going to wind up collecting? We're going to do just like we did last time and set that counter to an initial value of 0. So maybe let's try that out. I'll add that bit anyway, the value of the gemCounter to start with. Now I'm going to go over here and tap to enter code. How are you going to get Hopper to solve this particular puzzle and make sure that our gem counter reflects the number of gems that we've actually collected? Have you got it yet? I think I have an idea of what I'm going to do here. We're going to tap to enter code and start to get ready. All right, so let's see. So far, I can see that if I just move forward, collect gem, move forward, collect gem. Let's try that out. So we're going to tap in here. If my autocomplete bar doesn't come up, I can help it by hitting the caret here, and I can start typing, move forward. And my autocomplete bar shows me move forward, so I'll tap that. Now I want to collect gem, and I need to remember to increment that counter. So there are a few different ways I can do this. Let's do it the most straightforward way. So I'm going to just tap on gemCounter here. And then I'll get an option to put the equal sign here. There are a few other operators that are kind of interesting that we talk about later in Learn to Code 2. But I'm going to tap on just a single equal sign for now. And I've just collected my first gem, so I'm just going to add 1 to 0 myself. Then I'm going to move on. I'm going to do the next one. So I'm going to move forward again. And I'm going to collect the gem. And then I'm going to assign gem counter to 2 in this case. Gem counter equals 2. All right, let's go on to the next one. Actually, I'll give myself a little bit of space here as I kind of go through each gem. So I'll move forward again. I'll scroll back to collect gem. I'm going to assign a value to my gem counter. I don't have to wait for the autocomplete. I could actually hit the equal sign down here. So now it's equal to 3. Now you'll note, so we've talked a lot about how it's very important that you type things in a certain way. You'll note that when I used the autocomplete, I had spaces between gem counter, the equal sign, and 2. In this case, they're all mashed together, but Swift is okay with that. This is something you can play around with. And if Swift has a problem with it, it'll give you the little red dot. So of course you'll know, you'll say, okay, all right, I didn't do that right. I've got to make sure I translate it in a way that Swift will understand. So I've done gem counters 3. Let's find out where we are now. 1, 2, 3. So we've got 2 more to go. So we'll do move forward again. Collect gem. Gem counter. Do the equal sign. We're collecting our 4th gem here. We'll do move forward. We're going to collect gem. And then we're going to assign 5 to gem counter because we've collected our 5th gem. And then we'll just have a quick look over our code. Usually I'd have a look over and I'd kind of run it through in my head. Or, because it's so easy and nothing super bad is going to happen if I run it and it doesn't work, I can just try running it. So here we go. We're collecting our 1st gem, our 2nd, move forward and collect gem. Move forward and collect gem again. Collect gem again. Excellent. So we solved that puzzle. Now, you may have solved it a little bit differently, and there are a lot of different ways to solve this. Because as I'm going through typing in all these commands or using autocomplete to write these commands down, there's a lot of places where I can mistype things or forget how many I'm on. I could have easily forgotten that I was on gemCounter 3 here. And I can kind of see that I repeat the same thing over and over again. In fact, let me add a 1 here. Let me add a bit of space. If we look at my code now, I have these blocks of 3 that repeat themselves every time. Now, have we learned anything over the last little while that might help us with repeating blocks of code? Can you think of it? So what I might do is the first time I solve this puzzle, I might go through and I might hand write out all this stuff, all these steps. I might have some bugs in there, some mistakes, whether it's in my counting when I assign a new value to gemCounter, or I might have put in the wrong command. But now that I've figured out the pattern and I know that it works, now I might go back and say, actually, do you know what? I'm going to press down and hold here and move my cursor up to the very top. Yeah, and I like it. Somebody shouted out in the comments already, loops. That is a great idea. So actually we'll move forward back in there. So if I go up to the top here of all my code, I like it. I also had the suggestion of a function. That's another way that we can do patterns. Let's actually use both. So I have my func keyword down here. So let's create a function called collectGem and increment counter. Kind of a mouthful. Here, let's do func collect gem and let's say bump counter. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to move forward, collect the gem, and then add one to the counter. Or actually, we missed. Let's try, we'll tap on these two dots here. We're going to drag down. And there we go. I'm going to get rid of that placeholder because that's going to cause me some issues. So now I have a function called collectGem and bump counter. So I can call that instead of all of these. Am I going to run into any problems, can you think? We're just going to tap and hit select and then drag down and start deleting a bunch of code. I love getting rid of code because that means less bugs in my code. So now I can call collectGem and bump counter. So let's do that. And it shows up in the autocomplete bar down here. That's pretty good. Now I want to do that 5 times. I like the suggestion of using loops. So let's try that. Let's go find the for loop here. We're going to do it. How many times did we say? We got up to 5 gems. So we'll say 5 times. And let's drag down, just like we did before. We grab these 2 dots and drag down. So we have collect gem and bump counter inside my loop. Let's try running this. We're going to hit play. I have a small bug in my program though. Here we go. We're going to move the congratulations because we're trying out a new set of code. Hopper collects the last one, and we have a small problem because every single time I just assign the value 1 to gemCounter. I like it. We have a suggestion here. We need to add 1 each time. Small issue. Okay. So what we could do is we could look at the code that we had in our example, our introduction, and we could say, well, in here, we want to assign gemCounter to gemCounter plus 1. So what I'll do is I'll tap on the 1. I'll tap on gemCounter here because we're going to add 1 to gemCounter. Add 1. Now let's try it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through the steps so we can see each line as it goes. So we're going to step through our code. So we set the gemCounter to 0. We go into the loop and we call our function and we start running our commands in there. Okay, we're adding 1 to gemCounter again. What Swift is doing is it's taking a look at the value in gemCounter there. So the very first time it was 0 and they're adding 1 and then assigning that value to gemCounter. So then the next time it comes through, it looks at gemCounter and says, oh, your value is 1 now. So we're going to add 1 to 1. And then assign it. And let's see if this does the trick. Perfect. So we used all of the stuff that we've learned this week, for loops, functions, and now variables, to solve a puzzle. Pretty good. Let's go back over to Scotland and see how the guys made out. Oh, and you guys just have to come off mute.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt.
It was all the coding. You were heads down in coding and focused. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, we were too busy. We were too busy watching you guys at that time. So
It's
sorry
okay.
about
I was on mute too. So, in that we've been trying to solve this problem, how did people go about solving it? Do you think somebody would show us their code?
Yeah. Oh, hold on a second. We're going to have a little look at some of the code we've got here. So we've got one solution
Oh, very nice.
following yours.
I like it.
A few more attempts going on. And I might come up to the back here. And we had your first example,
Nice.
Matt.
I
So
like
we
it.
had more than one solution coming on from that. So that was really, really impressive from these guys. Really happy about that.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things about programming, that you could come up with a solution on your own, and then your neighbor is going to come up with a completely different solution, and you can learn from both. It's great.
We also had this one as well.
Ah.
A little bit cheeky.
I like
good
it.
one.
I like it. Programmers are lazy. You're you're
Yeah.
good.
Well, that's perfect, because that's realizing that the total number needs to be 5, so going straight to 5. Perfect. It's a great hack.
And Swift was happy with it as well.
Cool. That's good.
Good. On the chat, Matt, we had a question of, can the playground let us know how many more gems we need to collect?
Ian, you know what? That's a great question. I saw that, and not in this particular playground page. In some of the other pages, variables that you set will be reflected in the playground. And then when you start building your own apps in playgrounds like Lights, Camera, Code, Sonic Workshop, Sensor Arcade, you have the ability to put labels up on the screen so you can display the value of variables, and that in those cases, that's when you can start to put your own gemCounter up. So that's a great question, though, but unfortunately not in this playground.
So we've been looking today at how we've used variables. Tomorrow we'll be looking at making our own games. So just asking our friends up in Kelso there, do you know how to play rock, paper, scissors?
Do we know how to play rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah. So today you've been using one of the playgrounds, which it's quite fixed, isn't it? You have a target to reach those 5 gems, and you have to solve that problem. But you've been very creative in how you've used different ways to solve that. Tomorrow it's much more open, and we're going to be playing rock, paper, and scissors. And you'll be able to then code your own games tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys do with that.
What do we think, guys? Does that sound like quite a good opportunity when you get a chance to do this, where we get to make our own games tomorrow? Does that sound pretty cool?
So in preparation for tomorrow, the game already is rock, paper, scissors. What other things might you want to do instead of rock and paper and scissors? And also, maybe a different theme. So not using rock, paper, scissors. Is there something you're currently concentrating on? Like a theme like tackling the COVID virus, or a theme maybe in one of your subjects in science or history that you could use to make your own games. So have a think about that for tomorrow. And we've been thrilled to join you this morning Do you think you could just show us one last set of YMCA? Do you think?
I think we could do that. Do you guys want to stand up?
Oh, I like it.
We might get you some music as well, but we might get you copyrighted. So let's turn the music up. Okay, are we ready? And we'll fade you out here now because I don't want to
Perfect.
get you.
Oh, that was brilliant. You're good dancers and good coders. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kelso. Hi. Thank you.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow.